Do you remember that indescribable moment when something inside you seemed to break, not from pain, but because you finally saw the truth? It wasn't an outburst of anger. It was an awakening. It was the moment when someone who had always lived for others, always forgiven, always endured, finally stood up, faced the manipulator, and walked away in silence. No more tears, no more explanations, only absolute clarity and an unshakable decision. I deserve a better life than this. Today, this video isn't about pain. It's a declaration for those who are made to believe that kindness is a weakness. It's a torchlight for those who were manipulated by what was falsely called conditional love. If you're someone who feels too much, loves too deeply, and always tries to fix everything, this video is for you. So if you see yourself somewhere in this story, hit subscribe and stay with us until the end. We're not just analyzing a journey, we're rewriting a new chapter together. A chapter that begins with clarity, unfolds with strength, and ends with true freedom. When awakening in silence. Have you ever experienced that moment no one seemed to notice, no one could hear, yet something inside you quietly woke up? It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it didn't come in the form of rage. It was a silent yet irreversible wave, a feeling that you would no longer endure, not even once more. A moment when you no longer needed a reason to leave because the truth had become undeniable. The moment when the one who had bent, who had tried, who had hoped until it broke them, finally stood tall. Not to declare war, but to let go. This is the moment the super empath awakens. The one who once loved more than necessary, forgave more than was wise, and felt everything so deeply that they forgot themselves, now no longer sheds tears. They are no longer seeking approval, not hoping for recognition, and certainly not waiting for a late apology. They simply look the manipulator in the eye, smile, and walk away in silence. No accusations, no blessings, just a staggering peace in every step. Today's video isn't about the pain you endured. It's not a declaration against the one who hurt you. It's a manifesto of awakening, a recognition that you are enough and you no longer need to prove your worth to anyone. Today, we talk about strength, about clarity, about the moment you stop harming yourself just to keep others comfortable. Empathy is so often misunderstood. People think those who are too sensitive, too kind, too easily moved are weak, that they're born to be victims, to be taken advantage of. But no, true empathy doesn't come from fragility. It comes from awareness, from the ability to feel what others are hiding, from walking into a room and sensing what goes unspoken, from the courage to touch someone else's pain without judgment, without reacting, simply by being present. That is not weakness. That is a superpower. The super empath doesn't just feel deeply, they see clearly. They notice the slightest changes in behavior, the subtle tremors in someone's voice, the uneasy pauses hidden within words. They spot the red flags early on, but they're also the ones most likely to dismiss their own intuition because they always believe in the goodness of others. They believe in second chances. And that very belief, when placed in the wrong hands, becomes the perfect tool for narcissists to manipulate and drain them. Narcissists are drawn to that light like moths to a flame. They crave admiration, need constant validation, and are addicted to control. They don't seek out empaths out of love. They seek them because they know the empath will give endlessly. And when an empath doesn't yet understand their own worth, they become the ideal target. They fall into the cycle of rescuing, excusing, enduring, and slowly losing parts of themselves in the process. But one day, everything changes. Not because they've been betrayed too many times, not because someone else saved them, but because they finally realize, I'm not here to save anyone. My only responsibility is to save myself. And when that moment arrives, a new power is born. They stop chasing approval. They choose peace. They stop saying yes when their heart is screaming no. They redraw their boundaries, not with anger, but with wisdom and self-respect. Empathy at its highest form isn't just unconditional love. It is discernment. It's kindness paired with limits. It's compassion that knows when to say, that's enough. When a super empath reaches this level, they don't just walk away from a person, they walk away from the old version of themselves. And if you're standing at that crossroads between continuing to endure or daring to walk away, this video is for you. This is not just a story, it's a mirror, a reminder that you are not weak. You are growing, And the journey you're about to embark on is nothing short of a rebirth. If anything I've said today resonates with you, even a little, hit subscribe and stay with us until the end of this video, because you deserve access to deep healing insights, the tools that protect your soul, and most importantly, to the gentle reminders that you are enough. You've always been enough. And now it's time you believe it. Dude, it's not weakness, it's greatness. It's a painful but undeniable truth. Empaths don't get trapped in toxic relationships because they're weak. They stay because they're loyal. They don't remain because they're too blind to see the harm. They stay because they hope, they believe, they love wholeheartedly, without hesitation, without conditions. They see the good even in the darkness, and they carry the belief that if they just love enough, the other person will change. But love can't heal someone who isn't willing to face the truth about themselves. And when the empath finally understands that, not just intellectually, but through the bitter taste of personal experience, they stop trying to change the other person. They shift their focus. They begin to save themselves. That transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's born from sleepless nights, silent tears, and the quiet question that haunts the soul. What did I do wrong? And slowly, from within that silence, the truth begins to rise. It wasn't that they did anything wrong. It's that they were too patient, too sacrificial, too trusting, and then something miraculous happens. They stop seeking validation from someone who never truly valued them. They stop trying to be enough for someone who constantly made them feel like they weren't. They choose peace, they choose clarity, they choose themselves, and in that moment, their true superpower is activated. No longer is it empathy without limits or boundaries. It becomes discerned empathy, the kind that knows where to draw the line, the kind that can say no without guilt, the kind that understands you can love someone and still refuse to let them destroy you. You may have spent your life being the healer, the comforter, the one who gives without pause. But there's a deeper awakening waiting for you, becoming the protector of your own soul. That's not selfishness, that's maturity, because real love, true healthy love, will never ask you to lose yourself just to keep a relationship going. But narcissists cannot control someone who has awakened. They lose their power the moment you stop reacting. When you no longer fall for gaslighting. When you stop feeling like you have to justify your emotions as if they're a mistake. When you simply say, this is how I feel, and that's enough. Empathy, when fused with wisdom, becomes an unshakable force. That's when the super empath draws boundaries, not out of resentment, but out of clarity. They don't need to shout to be heard. They only need to be silent at the right moment and walk in the right direction. And with that, every manipulation tactic crumbles. So if you're in a relationship that makes you question yourself more than it makes you feel safe, if you find yourself shrinking, silencing your voice, worrying more each day, then maybe it's time to turn inward and ask, what's left of me in all of this? This video isn't about blaming anyone. We don't need more condemnation. What you need is a light to illuminate the path ahead, a voice to remind you that you deserve to be loved in a healthy way, and most importantly, to show you are not alone on this journey. Stay with this video until the end, because the deeper we go, the clearer you'll see the psychological mechanisms manipulators use to keep you tethered. And you'll come to realize true power doesn't lie in confrontation, but in detachment. Not in winning the game, but in saying, I no longer want to play. If you've ever given too much, bent yourself out of shape trying to preserve a one-sided connection, then this is your permission to stop. Not to give up, but to begin again. A journey back to yourself, with clear boundaries, with restored self-worth, with a love that doesn't require proving. You may be hurt, but you're not broken. You may have been deceived, but your worth remains untouched. And if you're starting to step out of that toxic cycle, remember this: every small step, every silent decision, every time you choose not to react is the act of someone reclaiming their power. If anything I've said today resonates with you, please hit subscribe and stay with us until the end of this video, because I believe that after today, you will look back with regret. You'll look back with gratitude. For the day you chose to rise, for the day you dared to love yourself. Breathe when the heart knows it needs an apology. Something strange happens after all those days you spent trying to save a toxic relationship. You don't cry as much anymore. There are no more screams of pain, no more sleepless nights spent analyzing every word. Instead, you just sit in silence and come to a chillingly simple realization. you don't feel anything anymore. It's not because you've run out of love. It's because you're exhausted from constantly trying to prove you're worthy of being loved. Day after day, you kept asking yourself, how do I make them understand I meant no harm? How do I stop them from being angry, from shutting down, from hurting me? But the more you tried, the further you drifted from yourself. You started asking the wrong question. Where did I go wrong? When the real question should have been, why am I still staying in a place that makes me feel so small? This is something many empaths go through. They don't leave early, not because they don't see the red flags, but because they believe in healing through love. They hope that if they're just patient enough, gentle enough, sincere enough, the other person will change. But true love never asks you to break yourself just to hold it together. There comes a moment, quiet, tearless, when you finally realize you've lost too much of yourself just to keep the other person comfortable. It's a moment when pain no longer needs to speak because clarity has filled every corner of your soul. And suddenly, what once tormented you the most, the need for closure, the longing for an apology, the craving for explanation, doesn't matter anymore because now you know their silence was the answer. What hurt you the most wasn't the times they exploded. It was the times you hurt yourself to maintain a false peace. You compromised when you should have spoken up. You stayed silent when you should have walked away. And piece by piece, you stopped being who you really are. But here's the beautiful part. You can reclaim all of it, not by demanding anything from them, but by coming back home to yourself. You stop expecting an apology. You stop trying to make them understand. You stop letting your heart depend on the emotions and validation of someone who only used you as a mirror to reflect their shattered ego. Instead, you begin asking new questions. Where does my worth come from? Where can I find my peace? How can I live without constantly bracing myself for impact? And you'll be surprised to discover this. When you start turning inward, a new space opens up, a quiet space filled with strength. A place where you no longer need anyone to tell you whether you're right or wrong. You just need to listen to yourself. And from that stillness, a new version of you is born. One who no longer waits for others to change so they can finally be happy. Narcissists manipulate you through chaos, through confusion that makes you question your own reality. But they can't manipulate you once you begin trusting your intuition, once you realize if someone truly loves you, they will never leave you in constant doubt. They won't make you feel like you're the problem all the time. What makes you stronger isn't the shouting or the begging to be understood. It's the quiet power of no longer needing to be understood. It's when you stop explaining, stop trying to fix what was never your responsibility to fix. It's when you simply say, I choose to let go. That's when the healing begins. You start to sleep better, breathe deeper. You begin to feel yourself again after so long living in a state of defense. You're no longer afraid of a match of a glance, a sudden insult. You stop living in anticipation of the next explosion because you've walked off the battlefield. And there, in that stillness, you realize peace isn't boring. It's exactly what you should have had all along. This video isn't just a story. It's a mirror. If you've ever tried too hard, forgiven too much, endured for too long, let this be your reminder. You have the right to stop. You have the right to let go. You have the right to live in peace without asking for anyone's permission. So hit that subscribe button and stay until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear next won't just help you understand how the narcissist operates. It will give you real strategies to protect your soul, reclaim your inner strength, and slowly rebuild your self-worth. Not for revenge, not to prove anything, but simply to live as you, and to feel whole on your own. 4. Silence is a sign of strength. In the world of emotional manipulators, nothing terrifies them more than a person who has found clarity, because as long as you're confused, they have power. As long as you're spinning between love and anger, between hope and despair, between right and wrong, they still have control. But the moment truth reveals itself, the moment you begin to trust your own feelings without needing external validation, their entire game collapses. You see, the chaos they create isn't accidental. It's a tool, a weapon, a perfect smokescreen designed to make you doubt yourself. One day they love you, the next they grow cold. One moment they praise you, the next they criticize. They lift you high, only to drop you lower, over and over, until you can no longer tell what's real and what's not. You begin to believe maybe you really are the problem. Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe you just need to try harder. And while you're busy adjusting yourself, they're basking in the satisfaction of control. But then something happens they never anticipated. You wake up, not because of a dramatic fight, not because someone came to rescue you, but because you started putting the pieces together. You begin to look back and realize their words never matched their actions. You remember promises that never came true. You recall the hollow eyes behind every apology. You remember how they made you apologize for having emotions. And suddenly, you no longer see the relationship as love. You see it for what it truly was, manipulation disguised as affection. And that's when your power returns. Slowly, piece by piece, you start asking a different question. What is staying here costing me? And that question isn't just a thought. It's a boundary, a declaration that you will no longer hand over your self-worth to someone else. It's the moment you stop performing psychological acrobatics just to maintain peace. Just when you finally realize that your intuition was right all along, you were simply trained to doubt it. And when that clarity arrives, not like a lightning strike, but like a sunrise, it becomes your greatest weapon. No need to scream. No need to explain. No need to fight. Just stand still, look him in the eye, and let your silence say, I see it now. And the narcissist knows the game is over. From that moment on, you are no longer pulled back into the cycle. They may try to reel you in with sweetness or lash out with cruelty, but none of it works anymore because the light of truth has exposed the entire performance. And once you see the show for what it is, you stop playing your part. To say, it clearly doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need a social media post. It doesn't need thousands of affirmations. It only needs one thing, an inner knowing that you understand. And from that space, the old reactions vanish. You no longer feel the need to confront. You don't even need to forgive in order to be free. You simply pull your energy back, and the other person realizes they no longer have control over you. In that stillness, you find yourself again. You stop justifying. You stop arguing. You stop seeking closure from the very person who benefited most from your lack of it. You begin to live by a new principle. If it costs me my peace, it's too expensive. And I understand stepping into clarity isn't always easy, because before that, you lived too long in the fog. You got used to calling chaos love, calling abandonment space to think, and calling silence the punishment you deserved. But now you know the truth. Real love doesn't keep you in constant anxiety. It doesn't make you choose between honesty and survival. If you're going through that awakening moment, then this video is for you. Together, we'll dive into the psychology of manipulation, not to hate, but to understand, not to retaliate, but to liberate, so that you don't just leave. You leave with the strength of someone who's awakened. So if today's words touch something true inside you, please hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the end of this video. Because in the next part, you'll receive practical tools to hold on to your clarity like armor, so that you'll never again be a prisoner in someone else's game. Truth doesn't just set you free, it redefines you. And in the light of that clarity, you are no longer the one who is hurt. You are the one who chose yourself. 5. Worth doesn't need to be proven. Something remarkable happens when you begin to withdraw your energy from the person who once manipulated your emotions. A quiet peace begins to seep into your soul. It doesn't come like a roaring wind. It arrives like the warmth of sunrise, slow, silent, yet undeniable. And in that moment, you realize no one can take your peace from you unless you let them. From the moment you step out of the narcissist scripted play, a completely new chapter begins. Not a chapter of loud triumphs or sweet revenge, but a chapter of quiet, powerful restoration. You no longer need to shout to be heard. You no longer need to explain your past to be understood. Because now you're living in a present you've built with your own awakening. When you leave a toxic relationship, you're not just walking away from a person, you're walking away from an entire inner world you built to survive. In a world that we had to tiptoe across eggshells, decode micro expressions, and brace yourself every time the phone rang. And then you step into a new space, a space where you no longer have to shrink yourself just to keep someone else from exploding. You stop, not because you've run out of strength, but because you've gained understanding. And when you understand, you no longer need closure. You no longer need them to admit they were wrong, to apologize, or to finally get you. Because the strongest thing you can do is not convince them. It's to convince yourself that you deserve a life free from chaos. And from there, the healing begins. Not in a flashy way, but in a grounded, real way. You sleep better, you breathe easier, and you find joy in the little things. You are no longer drowning in the toxic energy you once mistook for conditional love. You realize peace is not boring. It is exactly what you've been searching for all along. You were just conditioned to believe you didn't deserve it. This healing doesn't come from the outside. No one brings it to you. You choose it. You're the one who decides to stop blaming yourself, to stop chasing people who never intended to slow down and understand you, to stop living as if love must always come with pain. And then something beautiful happens. You begin to reestablish your boundaries. At first, it feels unfamiliar. You might feel guilty saying no. You might wonder if you're being too harsh, but you do it anyway. You hold the line because deep down, you know that every time you don't defend your boundaries, you betray yourself a little. And as you stand firm, things become clearer. You begin to see who stays out of genuine care and who stayed out of convenience. Those who once thrived on your softness will withdraw. Those who were used to the version of you who always gave will say you've changed. And that's okay, because not everyone deserves center stage in your life. Healing is not just about letting go of them. It's a journey of returning to yourself. You start to rediscover the parts of you that were buried, the hobbies you forgot, the dreams you thought, and most importantly, you begin to love yourself again. You're not a self-indulgent love, but a disciplined, mature, compassionate love. One with boundaries. That's when you look back on the past, not with tears, but with gratitude. Not because what they did was right, but because through all the breaking, you were given the chance to rebuild from a stronger foundation. Not the version of you that carried the world, but the version that knows themselves, protects themselves, and chooses for themselves. You no longer need everyone to understand why you left. You don't need anyone to validate that your choice was right, because you've learned that peace doesn't need an audience. It only needs one person, you brave enough to defend it. If you're walking this path, the path of healing, of returning to your purest self, of self-reclamation, this video is for you. These aren't just words of encouragement. They are a compass to help you keep moving, even on the days when doubt still lingers. So if this video has awakened a truth in you long forgotten, oftentimes you'll feel seen, understood, and accompanied, then hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the very end. Because what's waiting for you beyond this moment is not just encouragement, but real strategies for living, tools to rebuild your life with strength, with purpose, and with hope. And always remember that you're not just walking out of a storm. You're stepping into a new sky, one painted by your own hands, a space with no fear, no control, only clarity, freedom, and a heart that has finally come home. 6. When the light is no longer wasted, is a powerful, paradoxical truth. It is the simple question, but what about me? That begins the deepest healing journey in the life of an empath. For so long, he lived as a shadow in someone else's story. You were the listener, the fixer, the sacrifice, but never the main character in your own life. You got used to putting other people's emotions first. You thought as your moves changed your tone. You even forgot what you liked, what you needed, all to preserve a relationship that constantly hovered on the edge of explosion. You thought that was love. Oh, you but there was responsibility. But then one day, in a quiet moment, when no one was calling your name, when no one needed you to play the rescuer anymore, you turned inward and unexpectedly heard a voice you had never allowed to speak. But what about me? That question, though it seems simple, holds the power of an emotional earthquake. It doesn't scream, it whispers. But because it whispers, it echoes endlessly. Because this is the first time you're meeting the part of yourself that had been buried to please others, the part that stayed silent while you said yes. When your heart was screaming no, you suddenly realize you've been living in an emotionally distorted pattern. Your own world where your worth was measured by how much you could endure. Where you were praised for being patient, forgiving, selfless, but no one asked if you were happy. No one stopped to see if you were quietly falling apart inside. And worse, maybe you never asked either. And that's where many empaths get trapped. They've been conditioned by conditional love to believe that love comes at the cost of self-abandonment. That unless you carry the entire emotional burden, you don't deserve love. That if you're not constantly understanding them, and then you're the one lacking empathy. But here's the truth. No real love asks you to break yourself in order to keep it alive. And when you begin to ask the question, but what about me? You are stepping into a new phase, the phase of awakening. The stage isn't easy. It comes with heartache. You'll see past versions of yourself who tried so hard. You'll grieve the time you lost, the years you loved so sincerely, only to be met with pain. You'll also begin to see the light of a new self slowly emerging. You'll start to set boundaries. At first, it will be uncomfortable. There will be a voice with the inside that whispers, you're being too harsh. There'll be people outside saying, you've changed. But you'll do it anyway. Because you know that every time you don't protect yourself, You stepped further away from your truth, and you're tired of living in the shadows. You begin to choose you, not by rejecting others, but by refusing to abandon yourself any longer. You say no, quit it. You stop over-explaining your emotions. You stop apologizing for your sensitivity. You understand now, empathy is not a free pass for others to cross your boundaries. And then the most miraculous thing happens. You begin to feel peace right there in your own skin. No more proving, no more chasing, no more needing someone else to see your worth in order to feel it yourself. Odell, because you've stopped seeing you. From that point on, all your relationships begin to change. You no longer attract people who only take. You start creating space for those who give, who listen, who love without conditions. Not because you demand it, but because your new energy has become a standard. You no longer need to teach others how to treat you. You just live in alignment with your truth. And that truth naturally filters out everything that doesn't belong. If you're just beginning this journey of turning the question inward, this video is your companion. It's not a lecture. It's not a judgment on anyone. It's a mirror you can look into, not to find flaws, but to find truth, not to blame, but to set yourself free so that you can look yourself in the eye and say, I'm still here. I never disappeared. And I deserve a life that's healthy, unconditional, and no longer soaked in pain. And if you've ever felt swallowed by unhealthy relationships, please don't miss this chance. Hit the subscribe button and stay with me until the end of this video. What's coming next are practical tools to rebuild your self-worth, to heal the unconscious wounds, and to craft a version of you that is stronger, clearer, and freer. This is not the end of a relationship. It is the beginning of a life you are finally in control of. And it all starts with one question. But what about me, Evan? It begins with the question, but what about me? There is a kind of stillness no one talks about. The stillness that comes after you've stepped away from the narcissist game. It's not emptiness. It's not loneliness. It's a sacred quiet, a silence where for the first time you can hear the true voice within you. It's the moment when you no longer react on impulse. I no longer feel the need to explain, that no longer get swept into emotional scripts written by someone else. It's the moment you reclaim ownership of your own mind. When an empath has been through it all, from love to blindness, from patience to total exhaustion, the act of walking away is no longer impulsive. It is the culmination of 1,000 invisible wounds left unhealed. It is the breaking point of realizing your kindness was mistaken for compliance. And the more you gave, the more you were devalued, not because you lacked worth, but because they never intended to honor it. And so you choose silence, not the silence of rage, but the silence of someone wise enough to no longer fight a battle that has nothing left to defend. A quiet withdrawal, a step back without bitterness. Simply, I'm no longer here to play the role you assigned me. The narcissist expects rage, collapse, begging, but they are never prepared for your absolute calm. It's your lack of reaction that truly unravels them. Because when there's no one left to manipulate, no one left to mirror, no one left to emotionally, they are left floundering in the emptiness you leave behind. You don't need to slam the door. You only need to quietly take back the key you once gave away too freely. That is true power. When you don't walk away in hatred, but in love for yourself, when you do not have to prove they were wrong, you simply affirm that you've heard enough not to go through it again. When you understand that forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation, that you can forgive and still choose distance, you begin to understand peace doesn't need applause, doesn't need validation. It only needs a heart mature enough to stop seeking approval from the place that once wounded you. That's when you stop living as the safe version of yourself, just to avoid abandonment, and you begin living as your whole self, unfiltered, unapologetic, and free. And so you have become someone new. You no longer react to every provocation. You no longer try to understand what no longer needs to be understood. You no longer measure your worth through the lens of someone unworthy. You no longer open your heart just because someone knocked at the moment you felt weak. Because now, peace is a decision, not a fleeting state. And with that decision, you begin rebuilding everything. Your boundaries, your mindset, your habits, and even the way you love. No longer a love rooted in the fear of abandonment, but a love grounded in internal responsibility, a love born from freedom, from the ability to say no without guilt, from the understanding that you were never meant to carry the emotional weight of others. And then something miraculous happens. You stop attracting chaos. you begin attracting clarity. Gone are the relationships that leave you in confusion. Gone are the people who come only to take. Instead, you begin meeting those who listen without judgment, those who don't require you to prove yourself in order to be loved. None of this is a coincidence. It's the chemical reaction of an internal transformation. When you realign your energy, you shift the entire magnetic field of your life, not through false affirmations, but through presence, a presence that is real, whole, and conscious. And if you find yourself in that stage, the stage of inner stillness, of powerful withdrawal, of peace that needs no audience, then this video is for you. Not to make you revisit your pain, but to confirm the growth that has taken root from that very pain. So hit the subscribe button and stay with me until the end of this video, because the next part won't just be about the narcissist anymore. It will be about you, the one who is rising, the one who is rebuilding a life, not out of emotional scraps, but from the solid foundation of restored self-worth, emotional intelligence, and inner dignity. Because in the end, the greatest triumph is not that you left, but how you move forward. Not in anger, not in revenge, not needing to prove anything, but simply by being yourself in a silence that commands respect. And in the end, when you look back on the journey you've walked, from those early days full of hope, toward the moments where you lost yourself in the maze of manipulation, to the final awakening, you come to realize a simple yet powerful truth. Freedom doesn't come from the narcissist changing. It comes from you changing. No one else has the right to define the person you become. And the journey of walking away from them is not merely an escape from pain. It is a return to yourself, because what you reclaim isn't just emotional control. It's the reconstruction of your identity. It's the courage to look inward and listen to yourself with unwavering honesty. It's asking the questions. Where am I when no one is manipulating me? What kind of life do I want to live? And what values will it be built on? And from those questions, you rebuild your foundation, strong, authentic, and no longer compromised. Now you no longer react from wounds. You act from understanding. You no longer need an apology to close the past. You need only one thing, the permission to move forward without looking back. The one who hurt you may never understand how strong you had to be. And that's okay, because your healing doesn't depend on the acknowledgement of the one who broke you. It only requires your presence. Here, now, whole and truly free. If this journey is part of your story, remember, you are not alone. You don't have to walk it alone. Hit the subscribe button and stay with us until the very end, because this isn't just a video. It's a reminder that you matter, that you are worthy of healthy love, so that you can begin again with a heart that is not bitter, but stronger than ever. You are not just a survivor. You are someone who has been reborn.